Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, welcome. I'd like to talk about actual. I'd like to talk about reality. And the reality situation is this is the President's fourth budget, and this is the fourth year in a row that he is not addressing Social Security. He's really not in a meaningful way addressing Medicare, which we all realize are the real drivers. I mean, I agree with Senator Sanders. I'm highly concerned about why anybody would propose defunding America's retirement plan, not only just 1 year, but 2 years in a row. And when is that ever going to stop? Because the chart behind me shows that by the year 2035, we will run a cash deficit of $6 trillion. And that's a real concern. So, again, I want to talk about, I want to kind of cut through the poll-tested Washington speak that I think is so much of the explanation behind this budget and get to some facts. Now, first of all, let's talk about actual spending. Getting to what Senator Sessions was talking about, spending does increase compared to your last year's budget. On table S1, you projected 10-year outlays of $46 trillion. Now, that just because we're not cutting spending. If you take a look at the last 10 years, we spent $28 trillion over 10 years. Your projection was for $46 trillion in your last year's budget. You're projecting in this year $47 trillion. These are correct numbers. Am I right?
I don't think those help you at all explain the choices we face.
Those are correct numbers. Out of your budget last year, you projected 10-year spending of $46 trillion. This year, projecting $47 trillion. Correct? I just want those are correct, right?
No, you know this very well. Millions of Americans are retiring, becoming eligible for Medicaid. So what that means is that those spending grows over time.
Are these numbers accurate or not? This is your budget from last year and this year in terms of outlays, correct? 46 versus 47.
I know you want to cut deeper than we're proposing.
No, okay.
I understand it.
Let me move. I'm not going to get an answer. Let me move on to my next question. I would think most Americans, when they hear that you're going to reduce the deficit by $4 trillion, would think you're going to reduce the debt by $4 trillion as well, correct?
I think I could save you time by saying, I know you want to cut deeper faster. I got it.
No. I just want to cut through, the fiction that this budget is. So, according to your budget last year, you were estimating on table S14 that the total debt in the year 2021 would be $26.3 trillion. Take away the $900 billion, the thing that we should compare it to is $25.4 trillion. Right now in this budget, you're estimating $25 trillion for 2021. So the only thing I can come up with is that the total deficit reduction is $400 billion, which Congressman Ryan arrived about the same number a different way. So we are not seeing $4 trillion of deficit reduction, are we?
Those are 3 days I've heard and listened to that argument, and it has no value as a way to expose the choices we face in this context.
I'm trying to cut through the fiction. Isn't it true, if you're really going to cut the deficit by $4 trillion, you should be reducing the projected debt?
Senator,
isn't that true?
I think I can save you some time on this. Ask CBO what happens to the deficit if you were to enact our policies, and they will tell you the deficit falls dramatically to the share of GDP. That's the test of fiscal responsibility. What we differ on is whether we should cut more than that faster and how we should get there.
You're not answering my question. Let me just ask you another one. I've heard repeatedly over the last year that the President was for the grand bargain. Again, I know that's poll tested. It sounds grand. It sounds like a real bargain. I bet you he's even balanced. What was it? What was the grand bargain? Was it ever on a piece of paper? Did the American people ever see the entitlement reform that the President was actually supposedly agreeing to?
Senator, I spent, as the President did, months and months with the senior leaders of the Republican Party and Democrats.
Did Americans ever see what the President's proposal was to reform entitlements? Because he keeps talking about that he actually had a plan. What was the plan?
We proposed in April of last year, in September of last year, and in this budget, reforms to entitlement spending. They are in the budget. Now, you can disagree with them. Is
there a plan? How do you reform them? How do you reform Social Security? How do you save Social Security over the next 35 years?
On Social Security, you're absolutely right. We have not proposed a plan to reform Social Security. We have not, nor have you, nor is your side.
But again, the President said he was for the grand bargain that actually reformed entitlements. What was the plan? Can you provide it to my office so I can see a detailed plan of entitlement reform?
You can see the detailed plan in the budget, on Medicare and Medicaid, much more detailed.
For Medicare, $350 billion.
Medicare and Medicaid together, $350 billion cut off the expected baseline.
And Social Security, I mean, you're doing nothing to address the $6 trillion deficit.
No, on Social Security, we have left, as you have, a broad commitment to work to strengthen it, but we are not willing to come to where you are on how to do that because, frankly, your side wants to cut the benefits deeper.
Let me move on. When I was questioning Chairman Bernanke, certainly I realized it's the level of uncertainty because we don't have a plan. Americans are taking a look at these deficits as far as the eye can see. The fact that this president isn't leading, isn't proposing real tax reform, isn't proposing any kind of nothing to propose saving Social Security and entitlements. And I asked, is that a problem? Chairman Bernanke said, yes, that harms economic growth. The White House, when their answer was, we have no opinion whether this body, Senate, should pass a budget. Do you basically agree with that? You have no opinion whether we should actually show a plan for how we save America financially?
Good question, so let me try to respond.
Sure.
My view is, as you've heard me say many times, that if Congress and this country, this city, this Capitol, this building, does not find a way to begin to make progress, more progress than we did in the summer, putting our deficits on a sustainable path, then it will be bad for the country, growth will be weaker, that will be damaging. However, if you look at any measure we have today of the risk that those concerns about the future are hurting growth, I do not believe you can find evidence to support that. And let me just cite in support of that the following things.
Now, are you going to press Senator Harry Reid to bring a budget to the floor of the Senate to actually vote on it?
That's really a better question to address my colleagues, but I want to just finish this one thing. To borrow at 10 years now, we pay less than 2%. There is no evidence in any measure in financial markets today of concern about fiscal sustainability, about inflation risk, other things in any measure of financial markets you can test today every day. Doesn't exist today. Now, if we don't act on this, it'll happen, it'll hurt us, but not today. Now, again, if you look at any measure of the basic health of the American business sector, outside construction today, profits very, very high. Expected profitability in their stock prices way above where we came in. And they are spending on investment in equipment and software and on employment at levels that are pretty healthy given where we are and where we're going. So you are right to say that we cannot sit here and do nothing about these problems. We have to do more. We just started that process. It's going to take some time. It'll hurt us if we don't get there. But there is not, I don't think, strong evidence today to suggest that the fact that you're not willing to move on it now, we can't close our gap right today, is having a material impact on growth now.
Senator Toomey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Secretary. Thanks for being back. I guess this is